Evening. Welcome to part 10 of our online course on the Juche Idea. And in this part, we were going to perhaps sail into controversial waters. We're going to examine the relationship between Juche and Marxism-Leninism. And as some might say, why do we need to do this? We've decided to include a session on the subject because in countries such as our own, the subject often comes up. It's an old horse chestnut. It's often brought up in quite a polemical, contentious way, with some people saying, Juche is an abandonment of Marxism-Leninism and therefore cannot be supported, or it needs to be rejected. Others, claiming to be more sympathetic to the DPRK, claim that Juche is simply Marxism-Leninism applied to Korea, and that there's little or no point or value in studying it. We boldly say that both points of view are wrong. Firstly, let's look at the argument that Juche rejects Marxism. If Marx was alive today, he would be impressed by the amount of people who uphold his theories because of the scientific accuracy of his critique of capitalism. But at the same time, he would be horrified, mortified by the fact that some people have transformed his ideas into something like the Bible, a tablet of stone, which is then used to attack new theories. In the days when Marx and Engels were alive, there was not a single socialist country in the world. Powered flight was not yet possible, though it was talked about. Space travel did not exist, and antibiotics did not exist. There have been big changes since those days. So, as to the specific charge that Juche rejects Marxism. In fact, Comrade Kim Jong-il wrote in 1983, Marx's greatest contribution to mankind lies in the fact that he advanced Marxism, which provided the working class with a powerful ideological and theoretical weapon of the liberation struggle. And the work that this is from is Let Us Advance Under the Banner of Marxism, Leninism and the Juche Idea, May the 3rd, 1983. This shows a great and profound respect for Marx. Later, in 1992, Comrade Kim Jong-il and his work Socialism is the Life of Our People, urged that the work Capital by Marx should be studied and pointed out that when writing articles about the limitations of Marxism-Leninism, we must not fail to explain the exploits their creators accomplished. Only then can we give a correct understanding of Marxism-Leninism to the people and deal a blow to the imperialists and bourgeois restorationists who are cavilling at this ideology. End quotation. Thus, while being aware of the historical limitations of classic Marxist-Leninist theory, People's Career strongly respects the great achievements of the founders of Marxism-Leninism. As Comrade Kim Jong-il said, our party and people respect Marx, Engels, Lenin and Stalin as the leaders of the working class and speak highly of their distinguished service. The DPRK regards Marx, Engels, Lenin and Stalin as the distinguished forerunners of the revolution. In Korean society, in the DPRK, it's very important to respect, elders and forerunners. Simply pointing out that Marxism has historical limitations is not the same as rejecting Marxism. In fact, People's Career is one of the few countries in the world where you can actually take a university course in Marxism, Leninism, and dialectical materialism. And you can look this up on Kim Il Sung, the website of Kim Il Sung University. So it's basically a false statement that Marxism, Leninism has been rejected. In fact, it can be said that Juche actually had Marxism as one of its component sources, just as Marxism itself had the component sources of English classic political economy, such as Adam Smith and David Ricardo, the utopian socialism, and Hegel. As a young man, President Kim Il-sung deeply studied the works of Marx and Lenin, such as Capital, the Communist Manifesto, The State and Revolution, and Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism. At the same time, President Kim Il-sung was inspired and guided by the idea of G1, or aim high, that had been developed by his father, Kim Hyung-jik, the leader of the Korean National Association. The idea of G1 means aim high, to achieve independence and sovereignty, and also to achieve independence by relying on the strength of the masses. This concept set Kim Hyung-jik apart from the bourgeois and conservative Korean nationalists who did not believe in relying on the masses. President Kim Il-sung developed his father's ideas of G1 and basically took them further. Because Korea was a feudal society in the colony, and also many Korean people had been forced into exile in Manchuria, in China, existing Marxist-Leninist theories on revolution could not offer ready-made solutions to the issue of the national liberation struggle and achieving independence. So President Kim Il-sung developed new ideas and theories, which became known as the Juche Idea. This was basically outlined in the historic speech, The Path of the Korean Revolution, made in June 1930. After liberation, Korea faced the questions of carrying out the anti-imperialist, anti-feudal democratic revolution and the socialist revolution, as well as the question of building a new society in the country, which had been divided into two by imperialism, with the southern half occupied by an aggressive imperialist power, US imperialism. There were not ready-made, instantly applicable solutions to be found in the classic Marxist-Leninist texts. In People's Career, socialism had to be built through not only struggle against imperialism and class enemies, but against a hidden internal enemy, dogmatists and factionalists. These people would argue against different policies of the Workers' Party of Korea, either saying that such and such policy was not in the classics of Marxism, Leninism, or this had not been done in a big country. Such elements claim to be pure Marxists and actually invoke Marxism. And they say they claim to be purer than pure, but in fact their approach was actually extremely reactionary and counter-revolutionary. For example, they tried to oppose collectivization. If they'd been listened to, agriculture and the DPRK would have been left in hands of private farmers. Ironically, such arguments that were shattered decades and decades ago in People's Career still echo among some on the left today. Juche is simply not Marxism-Leninism applied to Korea, and not simply for Korea alone. It is worth remembering that when Lenin and Stalin successfully led the Great October Revolution and Bolshevism appeared, some right-wing social democrats in this country said Bolshevism only worked in Russia, that it was only suitable for Russia, and that it must be confined to Russia because it represented quote, a Slavic and Asiatic mentality. Is this not similar to the Orientalist and social chauvinist sneers about the Juche idea today? During the course of applying Marxism-Leninism to Korea creatively, President Kim Il-sung carried it to a new higher level. People in the DPRK began to talk of the Juche idea or Kim Il-sungism rather than revolutionary Marxism-Leninism. Whilst Juche inherits many features of Marxism-Leninism, it has original features as well. Comrade Kim Jong-il, in his work on correctly understanding the originality of Kim Il-sungism, October 2nd, 1976, stressed that when we say Kim Il-sungism is an original revolutionary theory different from Marxism-Leninism, we never mean that there are no derivations from Marxism-Leninism. At present, there is also a tendency to contrast Kim Il-sungism with Marxism-Leninism, allegedly to emphasize its originality. But its originality is not necessarily proved only by contrasting it with Marxism-Leninism, denying its derivations from the latter. Both Kim Il-sungism and Marxism-Leninism are revolutionary ideas which have provided solutions to the revolutionary practice of the working class. Juche stresses that man is the master of everything, and the popular masses are the masters of the revolution construction. Juche stresses the subjective factor as well as the objective factor. According to Juche, the masses are the subject of the revolution rather than the object of the revolution. In the past, socialist countries that followed Marxism-Leninism emphasized the material economic factor and believed that once socialist relations of production were established, then the consciousness of the masses would automatically change, and as a result, ideological work was neglected. Worse still, revisionism emerged. Juche stipulates giving priority to ideology. Basically, ideological work is the motor of building socialism. I think if we approach this issue with honesty and objectivity, we can see that there are some limitations in Marxism-Leninism. For example, what happened in the former socialist countries, where in line with conventional Marxism-Leninism, they stressed the material economic factor and neglecting ideological work, leading to the collapse of socialism. In capitalist countries, it was assumed by orthodox Marxists that revolution would break out because of the contradictions of capitalism, but this did not happen. I can remember myself in the 1980s where how unemployment rose to 3.5 million in the UK. I thought that the unemployed would take to the streets and rise in revolt, but this did not happen because they were ideologically brainwashed. Today, revolution does not break out in capitalist countries, not because living standards are high, but because of the grip of capitalist ideology on people's minds. Today, People's Korea, led by Marshal Kim Jong-un, stands imposingly as a country of Juche, a country of independence, self-sufficiency, and self-defense. Because of the of self-reliance and self-development, the imperialist sanctions will fail, and the DPRK will march to final victory. And it would be a great thing if many countries broke with imperialism and took the road to Juche. Juche carries forward the ideas of Marxism in the modern era, and at the same time is an original ideology of independence, of liberation for mankind. Thank you for listening. And the questions I'm going to set down for next time is, number one, does Juche really reject Marxism? Number two, could it be said that Juche is a synthesis of the idea of Qi and Marxism-Leninism? Number three, how does Juche overcome limitations in Marxism-Leninism? Number four, how do you argue against someone who says that Juche is limited to Korea? So thank you for listening, and I will stop the recording now.